Hello again, YouTube. I am Adam Davis, and I am the average snake keeper. And this is Shao Kahn, my Dumerils boa. He is actually the second Dumerils boa that I have owned and worked with. However, the first one that I had was just a wee little neonate fit in the palm of my hands. And boy, was he a frustrating, angry, and ornery snake to work with. That animal didn't want to eat for me. It bit me a bunch of times. The only snake I've ever owned that bit me. Didn't hurt or anything. Little baby boa. So, but after working with that animal for some months, my biggest problem wasn't that he was biting. It was that I could not get him to consistently eat. He would take live food, but he took hours to eat it. He would need to be left alone with it, and just, and sometimes the babies are indeed picky and shy eaters, but I couldn't switch him onto anything that was frozen thawed or killed or anything like that already, and I just didn't want, as that animal grew, to leave any kind of bigger prey items in there with it that, could feasibly bite back and be defensive towards the snake while he was in there. So I ended up taking a trade for that animal, and in my time keeping, the only time I ever traded a snake for another one. And I wouldn't have done that if I didn't know that he was going somewhere that he was going to be well taken care of. So the person who took the trade, he's one of the few kind of local connects that I have in the hobby out here. He was familiar with the species, and he had access to chicks as feeders. And that is apparently the magic prey item for a picky Dumerils boa that doesn't want to eat. So he took him. I got a nice little baby python in return, but I really wanted this species in my collection. I was super excited to work with that little baby that I got, and heartbroken, and still kind of to this day almost feel like I kind of gave up on the animal a little bit, but he's eating well, and he's calmed down behavior-wise, so I know he's in a good home. But myself, like I said, I was just real excited. I had spent months of research on getting a Dumerils boa. I had already had a ball python and a boa imperator for a while, so it was going to be my third snake. But shortly after taking the trade for that little baby, I came across somebody rehoming this guy right here. It was about a little over a year ago, maybe. It was last June. So this guy was 5 years old. He's a little over 5 feet now, but he needed a new home. His old owner just couldn't keep up with a lot of financial things that were coming up, and he had to kind of downsize his reptile collection as a part of that. So I took him in, and he's been great. He's absolutely, I'm going to say this about every snake I show you. He's one of my favorites, but he just, never mind being super beautiful and relatively chill these days. When I first got him, and if you see my Instagram video, you can actually see while I'm bugging him a little bit to come out for this one. When I first got him, he was real skittish, and he would tend to kind of shove you away if you put your hand on him. So he knows how to whack you with his tail like a pinball lever. And anywhere else that you have your hand on him, and if he's not feeling it, where you going, bud? You got nowhere to go. If he's not feeling it, basically, he pushes out like that and hip checks you. I need you in shot. Come on, buddy. Let's get you back up. So here he is. He is my biggest snake. And he was kind of a good introduction to working with big snakes. Oops. Let me see if I can fix this camera here again. No! Boy, I just can't win with these YouTube videos. One day I will have a nice camera setup for you guys, and these will definitely get a little more high quality, but I'm not letting him turn this into 2 takes again. So anyway, like I said, he was kind of my introduction to owning a larger snake. And my boa imperator, may one day surpass something like this size. He's already almost 4.5 feet long. Shao Kahn here is he's maybe 5.5, probably a little less. He did put on a few inches the year that I got him. And he's also lost a few pounds because I got him a little bit chunky. So a lot of people, that'll lead me on to something else here. We'll talk about a lot of these other subjects as they come up. But real quick, I see when a lot of people get, especially boa constrictors, whether it's a common boa or a locality boa, or if it's even a Dumerils like this guy, they'll get them overweight because they're very commonly just overfed and power fed in general. And their strategy to get the snake lean is nearly starving the animal. Hey, bud. Which is not what I did. All I did was I just got him on a smaller prey size, and I feed him about every 3 to 4 weeks. So he eats a small to a medium rat, even at this size. You know, I could probably push a larger one on him, but I was told that he had a history of sometimes regurgitating food, so I just never wanted to play that. But anyway, he lost some weight, definitely lost some girthiness to him, but still managed to grow. I would say he put on at least 3 inches this year, if not closer to 5, which is awesome. Like I said, I got him about right at 5 feet. He's a little bit bigger now. So even though 5 feet isn't necessarily huge for a snake, for me, he was already an adult when I got him. He had a lot of size as far as, again, how girthy he was, how heavy he is. These are a ground-dwelling snake, so they're very heavy-bodied. So if you were to take this 5-foot Dumerils boa, right, and put him next to a 5-foot boa imperator, or even just like a boa constrictor locality, he would appear bigger. And that's just because they're thicker, they're heftier. So take, a normal boa around the same size, and they're very lean, kind of slender. Females obviously probably have a little bit more size on them, but when you put him next to my other boa, it's like the two of them aren't even close to the same size. But that's just kind of how they grow. Anyway, like I said, in the beginning, I want to talk more about the individual than just the species. I can show you very clearly why I wanted this species in my collection, though. I love their patterns. Both kind of on top, on the bottom, underneath. Take a look at how he looks under his belly there. They're just gorgeous animals all around. And they are reputably pretty docile. But this dude, like I said, when I got him, he was real skittish. And that was a little alarming because his previous owner described him as the best reptile he ever owned. So when I unboxed him, and he was, he's never hissed or anything like that, but he definitely is quick to run, and again, he was real shovey with me, so he didn't quite, I think, know what to make of me. And that brings me kind of to a point, we'll try and get over stuff like this too, but in witnessing that kind of behavior, it always makes me wonder the difference between when you raise a snake, or any animal really, but let's keep it in context to snakes. When you raise one from a baby yourself, and they're used to you, they're used to your scent, they're used to the way that you handle them, they're used to even, your home, how many people are walking around, what other animals maybe you do or don't have, and what room they're in, all that kind of stuff. How you kind of set up their enclosures. I've definitely gone a couple different ways, but I have kind of I have a system now where a lot of my snakes basically all kind of have this same very minimalistic setup. So, it's the way I keep him. I don't quite know how his home was set up before he got here. So it's one of those things where, this animal had basically lived 5 years of its life up into what is really adulthood kind of for these guys with somebody else. And now all of a sudden he's with me, and I smell different. I look different. I handle him a little bit differently probably, and I put him into a tub environment that was probably different than whatever he came from. So you have to wonder, even if the animal itself may have been super relaxed and laid back at its prior home, after it's been shipped in a box overnight and goes into a new environment with new people, I kind of wonder just how much of their personality might change a little bit. He has calmed down a lot, though. And again, it took me over a year working with him to get him to the point where he doesn't really shove much anymore. He did earlier today, but it was kind of because I was messing with him without actually picking up. So, if I go and I'm just touching him, and I'm not actually grabbing him and taking him out yet. He's kind of like, "What are you doing? Get off me." But he doesn't run away so much anymore. There are some times where he kind of still squirms and really tries to get away with you, but especially I would say over the past month, I've really noticed when I take him out, he instead, he can be a little bit of a, whoops, there you go, bud. He can be a little bit of a project to handle, but he's not quite as squirmy. He's a little bit more slower moving, kind of a little bit more curious the way he is right now. But he's an absolute joy to work with. And it's really cool, like I said, to kind of see, I always thought, well, he's sweet, he's never one to bite, but he's just, skittish. And I thought maybe that'll just have to be how I accept this animal's personality as. But he has changed a little bit, he's a lot more receptive to being held. He's a lot calmer when you do have him out. Like I said, his movement's a little slower, but he's a curious one. Once he kind of sees that there are some spots to go and things to look at, he's all over it. Right now he's obsessed actually with my coffee mug that's over to the side here. But again, he was good to work with because at the time, like I said, he was the first big snake that I worked with. And he's kind of gotten me used to what I can expect when my boa imperator grows a little older. My guy's probably only about 3 years old. He's maybe 4.5 feet, but by the time he's 6 or 7 years old, that might be a 6 or 7 foot animal. And working with Shao Kahn here, even though he's a kind of a small one, that gives me a lot more confidence and experience with holding a snake like this, because I hadn't grown into one that had grown this size yet. I was comfortable and confident enough with his description on how this animal would behave that, I wasn't going to be super scared of it. But when you're a keeper who's only been working with these animals for, at the time, I was just pushing 3 years, maybe, I suppose. So right now I'm just pushing about 4. Like I said, that's all I had worked with was a ball python. And she had, been pushing into adulthood and maturity, and she's pretty hefty now for a ball. But even then, it's, a big ball python is still an animal you can hold with one hand and fit in your lap. And it's not, once you've been working with snakes for a little while, it's really not that intimidating to see a large ball python. And then I had my other boa who, I got him, he was probably around maybe a foot, 18 inches or so when I got him. I think he was probably already about a year old. So, but they grow so slow, and so does this species. But, again, I hadn't had anything quite like the heft of this guy. So when I took him out and the first few times I'm handling him and I'm trying to get used to his body language and he's trying to get used to mine, it was another experience that was just slightly unnerving. I didn't quite know how it was going to get. But he's just always, like I said, the worst that I've really ever gotten out of him was him just being skittish. He just kind of shoves you away and he tries to go find somewhere. I'm going to just let you guys watch this pattern move. The worst I ever saw out of him, and it was totally my fault. I kind of pissed him off around feeding time. He is one of 2 snakes that I own who's really picky about food temperature. So if you're feeding him frozen, you gotta really make sure that rat is nice and whoop. Oh, come on. He discovered a cranny in the couch here. He usually doesn't do that. He usually kind of likes to go up or sit. He's not one to hide in the couch. That's my ball pythons that immediately go for the couch crevices. Gotta pay a little more attention to this guy. Anyway, like I said, he's picky with food temperature. So you gotta really make sure that when you thaw out a frozen rat, that thing is hot. Not so hot that you're cooking it, but he needs to not be able to mistake where that smell's coming from. And there was one day I was trying to feed him, and same thing, I didn't have that rat quite warmed up enough. And this was back when I used to use a blow dryer to thaw out rodents. So it created such a stink in the room that all my snakes would go crazy. So he's already in food mode. He's moving around, he's looking, he knows food's coming. And then I dangle that rat on a pair of long tongs, and he goes up nice and slow towards it, and he went past the rat, up the tongs, towards my hand, towards me, and Man, that was an experience. I immediately made the decision to just drop that rat in his enclosure, shut the lid. And I was hoping, all right, well, he's in food mode. The rat's in there. It's maybe he'll find it. A lot of people actually do, I think, feed this species by just kind of tossing a prey item in there and letting them just eat it overnight, because some of them are very shy eaters. He's never really been a shy eater. He just, like I said, he had that problem. But there I was. I have this big dead rat in the snake's cage. He's bugging out. So I waited a few hours. It's still there. He's not eating it. And I had the bright idea, well, I'll just move him away. I have a little snake hook. It's not a great hook, really. It's just kind of a tiny one that I usually use more for like tap training and just kind of touching him, maybe maneuvering a little new baby around. But it's not really strong enough to support this guy. He would just wreck the hook, and you could end up hurting them if the hook isn't supportive enough. But I thought maybe I could just push his head out of the way and distract him a bit and grab the rat. But the second I touched him with that hook, he whipped his head around at me so quick with his mouth open. Right? It was like this. It was just chill, 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 tapped with the hook. Didn't hiss or anything, but he was going to let me know that was going to be the hard way to do things that night. So that's it. That's the only really defensive behavior that I've ever seen out of this guy, like I said, outside of just kind of shoving your hand away. He's not a huge fan of being kind of touched up from the top anyway. I know a lot of snakes aren't going to be. They definitely want you to come from underneath so they feel a little more secure. But he just doesn't seem to like having your hand just kind of on him, that texture. The worst is when he makes a mess and I try and give him a bath. I wipe all my snakes down with just like a damp paper towel with a little bit of sterile solution on them after they pee or poop or something, because these poor guys, sometimes they're real dainty about it, and other times you find them just sitting in a puddle of their own pee. I don't like to put them in the bathtub and soak them or anything like that, but he definitely, when it's time to wash him, he slides right through that. He's not a fan. But yeah, otherwise, this is basically his temperament. Now this video, I think I'm going to push a little long here, so hopefully you guys enjoy watching him kind of move around. Because he is another animal. Basically every single bloody snake I own, with the exception of my newest one, has some kind of lesson tied behind them that I had to learn, or some kind of incident that I had to experience. And again, I will get into more of these in detail as the channel grows. For now, we're just kind of getting you used to some of my animals. But I had him in a big Sterilite tub for his quarantine container. Not quite a Christmas tree tub, but almost as long. It was pretty high, so it held temperature okay in like the summertime. But when winter was rolling around, I really needed him in something better. And at the time, I was really trying to put all my snakes, except for my one ball python that I owned, in PVC enclosures. And I had a real nice one come from Animal Plastics. I had just a little T8, 4 foot by 2 foot. And it's, as far as PVC cages went, is the just nicest looking one I ever had. Nice glass doors, slide and all that stuff. I put him in it a bit, and he seemed to do okay. And then he peed, and I disinfected his old enclosure one day. And from that day forward, he just began relentlessly wandering around and pushing at the doors. Just something was wrong. I didn't know what was going on. It wasn't too hot. It was heated by a heat tape rather than a heat panel, which some of my other cages were using. But again, for the ambient temperatures and for the temperatures that these guys need, Dumerils kind of like a little bit colder than your common boas do, because they're usually found on the ground and covered up in leaves and stuff. But I couldn't figure out what was making him bug out. So he lives in a Freedom Breeder 90 tub now in a TGR rack. TGR is sadly out of business because these are great racks. And he's doing fine. So go figure, I was able to put him in a couple of different custom tub setups, and he was fine. He's in this rack now, and he's fine. But when I had him in, a nice 4x2 PVC cage that somebody else could make into a vivarium or anything like that, he wasn't having it. So a lot of people, and I'm not saying that they're bad. I'm definitely not saying they're bad. A PVC cage is going to be like 10 times better than trying to keep an animal like this in like a tank. But I don't know, I see a lot of people, diss on things like racks, and I've had my snakes in other higher, I don't even want to say higher quality, but more expensive, elaborate cages. It was a big display cage, and he just didn't like it. So I think sometimes too, some of these animals with just his behavior, even though he's gotten a lot better at being social, perhaps he just wanted to be hidden a little bit more than that. Cage allowed him to. But yeah, anyway, not too much more history with this guy here. He is probably the coolest snake to watch eat because he hits like a Mack truck. And then he wraps his whole body around whatever. It could be a small rat, and he wraps his entire body around it, flips upside down. He's just great. I'll try at a certain point to see if I can get some feeding videos up here. I don't feed live. I did for a little bit have to feed live that time that he had that rat stuck in there. He still didn't get it. I distracted him with a live one so I could pull out the dead one. And for a little bit, him and another ball python of mine were being a little picky on food, but I've got them both back to frozen, which is excellent because it's cheaper. And I'm not a fan of tossing a poor little rat or mouse in there. You got to do what you got to do to feed your animals, but if I can help it, I don't need to see some little rat looking up at me with its little beady eyes as I literally toss it to be just squeezed to death by a snake. I don't have these animals because I want to see them kill other animals. I have these animals because I enjoy them personally. I enjoy working with them. I think they're beautiful. I think they're absolutely misunderstood by the majority of people out there. But so if I do any feeding videos, they will all be, I'll give a content warning and stuff like that for anyone who doesn't want to see, and they will be feeding frozen thawed rodents. But yeah, this is Shao Kahn, and I love him to death. There you go, little guy. Go turn the camera off, dinosaur face. Good job. All right. Oh, he's peeing on me! Okay, now's a good time to end this video. I'm the average snake keeper, and this is an average snake problem.